Hey you, I'm Dallas Ann, creator of the Violet Pie, and you're listening to Knitting Myself Together. In season 1, we've been talking about the general idea of knitting in public. And in this episode, episode 5, I'm wanting to talk with you about the underlying drive for me knitting in public. Why do I take my needles with me everywhere? I mean, we've talked about some more superficial reasons like anxiety and things like that, but there's something more to it here, and I wanted to explore that with you. But before we jump into that topic, I wanted to give you an update at the top of our conversation that has come over from previous episodes. So I've talked about that fingering weight sweater of doom. Well, I'm really excited and proud to tell you that it has recently come back from my tech editor. Becky is amazing, by the way. Shout out to Becky. Without her, I would be lost. And I'm sending it to my test knitters today. I am just beside myself, ready to see it come off their needles. I can't lie. I'm kind of nervous because what if it's a disaster for everyone? But we'll cross that bridge if we actually come to it. However, I do need some test knitters. I need test knitters in the larger sizes. I need any ranging from X1 through X4. If you fit in those sizes and you'd like to learn more about my super secret project, would you send me an email? That's thevioletpie@gmail.com. Again, thevioletpie@gmail.com. Or you can go to my website, thevioletpie.com, and there's a contact form that you can fill in there. I'd love to talk with you and see if you and I would work well together. I have no doubt that we would. And we can just loop you right in on the email conversation and go from there. Also, I can't imagine that you would have missed earlier this week on social media the pictures I've shared of my nearly completed Etta cardigan that I've been designing for the past month. I've had to frog that thing a couple times, but the fiber and the yarn and the colors of the Backyard Fiberworks yarn that Alice generously offered as yarn support to me is a dream. Watching my vision come to life with her colors has been mind-blowing, and that yarn has held up to some heavy abuse. I'm going to be needing testers for this, and Alice has offered a very generous coupon for all of my lovely testers. I'm going to have more information about that coming up in the next few weeks. If you want to be first in on that information or on any testing projects from here on out, in the show notes, there is a link to a Google form that you fill out with some basic information, and that will plug you into a spreadsheet for people that I earburn on Ravelry who might be interested in test knitting. Now, I would earburn you on any public or semi-public test knits. That means things you can share about on social media. If it is a secret test knit and you've chosen the option saying you're okay with that, I would email you directly to let you know that there's a test knit available, because secret means nothing on social media until the pattern's released, and that's so hard. It's not for everyone, I know, as you've heard in previous podcasts. Also, super exciting news, my broken toe is basically almost all the way better now. Now, when we got back from our Chicago trip, it was worse. Doctor said that was to be expected, and I'm pretty sure he was thinking, you foolish woman. And but I'm really excited that I can now wear regular shoes if I have to. I don't have to stick with my hiking sandals 24/7. For a while there, I was ridiculously, irrationally worried that I had irrevocably ruined my foot. But I am very pleased to be shown I was very wrong. And yay, toes, they're almost better. I never knew how much I appreciated them until, well, it wasn't a thing I could use. So, back to the topic at hand. Why do I knit in public? Yes, there's the anxiety component. When I'm at the OBGYN's office, I'm nervous and anxious because, well, you know why. And so knitting helps me remain calm and helps me adult through specific situations. Also, sometimes knitting in public is the only time I have to knit. Oh, waiting rooms, school pickup lines, waiting at the library for your kids to pick out their books. Sometimes public knitting is the only space knitting can happen in, and so that's where you knit. For me, however, I've come to discover actually through our conversations here all this season is that there's a third reason why I knit in public. And that's because it has, without fail, helped me find what I call my people. So all knitters, at least the vast majority of us, all know how to find groups of people to knit with. There's your local library. Apparently that is the happening place for knitters to gather on a regular basis to create things together. And it's without a question, we would all reach out to our local yarn stores or whatever the closest yarn store is to us to see if there's anything happening nearby. Those are two very easy and simple ways that most all of us know how to hang out with other people to knit if that's what we want in our life. But knitting in public has actually brought incredible people into my life. And you know how I feel about community. Having my people is vitally important to my life, sustaining my well-being. And without knitting in public, some very key people in my life would have never been involved in my life. The very initial person I think of is my friend Michelle. About 3.5 years ago, I was knitting at Starbucks on a Sunday afternoon. And I'm watching my terrible television. I've got my headphones in. I've got my sweater on my needles. And in walks this woman with the most tiny, squishy, adorable baby with a head full of dark hair. I wish you could see me right now. I've actually got goosebumps running down my arms. This is how much I love babies. And so she's walking into Starbucks with clearly a baby that's like 6 to 8 weeks old. She's a woman on a mission heading for the counter to order something. And I look a little closer and she's wearing her baby. For those of you who are in the baby wearing world, you know that baby wearing is a thing. It's not, it's akin to stalking your favorite indie dyer on upload day on steroids. That's how it is for finding some specific baby carriers. And there's this bond and this kinship that a lot of parents feel when they see other care providers wearing their babies. So there's that connection as well as I'm looking at this woman. And then I get a closer look at her carrier, and it's covered in a Doctor Who print. It's got the TARDIS all over it. All over it. I don't know what the plural is for TARDIS. Is it TARDISes, TARDI? Would somebody please inform me? I don't know which one it is. I fail. But I decide I cannot pass up this opportunity. So, yarns and sweater on my needles in hand, I go up and get behind her in line. And she's still got a few people in front of her. So I say, "Excuse me, um, I couldn't help but notice your amazing Doctor Who carrier, and your baby's hair is spectacular, and you seem super nice." And instead of looking at me like I'm a crazy person, she breaks out into this huge smile and she says, "Hi, my name's Michelle, and I knit too." And I'm really surprised how she knows I knit until I look down at my hands and see that I brought all the things with me in my haste to not miss her. So we exchange names, and I end up finding her on social media. And so I add her on Facebook, and as they say, the rest was history. We've been through a lot of stuff together, and I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for her and her support. And that is all because of knitting. Because I was knitting in public and I decided to be possibly a weirdo and reach out to a stranger to say hi instead of instead of the reverse that normally happens to me. And because I was knitting, she felt this thread, this bond connection, and lo and behold, there was something there. And so I talk a lot about how I knit, solo out in public. Sometimes I do try groups too. I'm not opposed to group knitting. And one time, years and years ago, when my oldest was an infant, so she's going to be 10 this fall, so however many years that was ago, I hosted a small Stitch and Bitch together at my house with some people from my local parenting group. And this one woman came, more than one woman came, but this one specific woman came who I really didn't know very well. But I felt this bond and this tenuous thread of connection. Like there could be something more here. But she had also recently had a baby. And neither one of us really had the emotional spoons or energy to explore that potential friendship, that connection, what have you. But you know what? Years later, because we had met in person at the Stitch and Bitch, we were able to develop a friendship that's based on knitting and shared values and a whole host of other things. And having Lee in my life is pretty invaluable. I mean, she lives 3 streets over from me. That's how invaluable she is. And that's because I decided to knit with a group of merely acquaintances and some complete strangers. So, in my mind, trying out groups is absolutely worth the potential risk. I mean, you've got to you have to treat knitting groups kind of like you do looking for a therapist. One size does not fit all, and sometimes you've got to shop around a little bit. Give them a couple tries, but if you're not feeling it, move on. And I've known in the past, we've had conversations about how sharing knitting on social media is kind of another form of knitting in public. And I really stand by that because that's how I've connected with my friend Susan. I know you've seen her pop up now and again on the blog and a few times on social media. I'm hoping to give her a introduction that is truly worthy of her. Hopefully that will happen soon. But Susan and I grew up together. I mean, there's enough years between us that we were simply aware of each other. We weren't friends in childhood, but we were aware of each other. And then, we drifted apart post high school. We went our own ways. And then just about a year and a half ago or so, we really started bonding over our mutually shared pictures on Instagram and Facebook about knitting. And I cannot even begin to express to you the level of sanity and support that Susan brings to my life, all because I quote unquote knit in public on social media. I love the internet so hard. Heart eyes for days over the internet. The internet has brought the most amazing people into my life and has allowed me to reconnect with equally amazing people. And this entire podcast conversation you and I are having, and the blog and social media, it would all fall apart without Susan. And our mutual love of knitting is just a small sliver of the foundation of our relationship. But it was the beginning of our grown-up adult relationship, for which I am forever grateful. So my favorite way to knit in public is with people. I primarily do it solo because that's just the way my life works, but knitting with people is probably one of the most favorite things in the world for me to do. Because, you see, my emotional battery is recharged by being with people. Have you seen that cartoon where the girlfriend has like the low battery sign that your cell phone has, and boyfriend gives her a hug, and the longer he hugs her, the more her battery life fills up? Well, that's how I feel about knitting in public with people. But like I said, getting all my people together to hang out to knit is basically impossible because our schedules are insane. We've got adult lives and children and work and adulting, and it's just all kind of terrible sometimes. And so knitting together very rarely happens if we all have to be in the same physical location. So one of the ways I get my fix is by getting us all together in Google Hangouts. It's like we all have webcams and we can all see each other and talk and chat, and it's pretty great. I've talked about this before, specifically with Mindy during our conversation, and I've decided I'm going to bite the bullet, and I want to do it with you. Will you please, I feel like I'm in kindergarten right now, asking somebody to sit with me at lunch. Will you please hang out with me on July 16th, 2 p.m. Central Time? I'm carving out 30 minutes out of my schedule to spend specifically with you. And, if you want to bring more friends along, that'd be amazing. But 30 minutes, that's it. That's enough time for us to see if it's working and conversation's going great. I'm not going to shut us down after 30 minutes, but it is a safety net because if things are awkward and weird, well, 30 minutes is good and we'll be done. In the show notes, there's a link for another Google form that you can click on to sign up. I just need your name and your email address. And all the details about how this will all work and what you need will all be on that Google form. I don't need to bore you with the details if you're not truly interested in it. But please, will you please hang out with me? It would be super amazing and awesome to see your face. That would be great. So, this episode here, episode 5, this is the last episode of season 1. Honestly, it's kind of bittersweet. This entire season has been a huge learning curve for me, and I can't thank you enough for coming along this journey with me. I am supremely excited, though, about season 2 because in case you got the wrong impression, this is not a goodbye. This is until I see you again. So, in between each season, there is a built-in hiatus. This is to allow me to cultivate more material for season 2 or whatever season is coming up next. It also kind of helps prevent the burnout factor. And I'm going to be designing a ton during that time. And so I'm going to be having a mighty need very, very soon for test knitters. So going back to what we talked about at the top of the podcast, there's a link to sign up for if you're interested at all in being a test knitter. So, coming back to what season 2 is about. Sorry, I'm a little squirrel today. Season 2's topic is going to be about knitting for others. Will you knit for kids? I know some people won't because kids are brutally hard on stuff. But you know what? I know some adults who are harder on socks than kids are. Is there anyone in your life you won't knit for? You know who I'm talking about. What about them? How do you handle that? And then how do you balance knitting for others versus the concept of selfish knitting? That thing that you create only for yourself. And also, I've got a real problem with the word selfish. For me, that has really negative connotations, and I am not sure how I feel about negativity being attached to me doing something for myself. And also, my list is kind of never ending as I'm thinking more and more about season 2's theme of knitting for others. What comes to your mind when you think of the phrase knitting for others? Is it the holiday rush? Is it elation, exhaustion, trepidation, fear? I know that sounds a little dramatic, but you got to understand here, this is coming from a person who has a lot of hang-ups about giving gifts to people, let alone something I've created with my own hands. So this will be an interesting topic for me to unwrap here and delve deeper into. I'd really love to hear from you, though. I'm going to be talking about the upcoming theme on our social media. I say our because I kind of feel like Susan, it's like part Susan's baby too. I'm going to be asking questions, and I'm really hoping that you'll provide feedback and we can have some dialogue during the hiatus leading up to season 2, which, by the way, I'll be back with episode 1 of season 2 on September 21st. So, September 21st, you'll have a whole new podcast and a whole new season to look forward to. So, like I said before, every hiatus will be happening between every season. That sounds a little redundant. Sorry. Words are not my thing today. So if this Google crafting knitting hangout thing is a success, I would love to do one during every hiatus just to maintain that connection and keep the conversation going. Also, I'm going to be trying vlogging over at Patreon. My goal is just to talk with you like we are here. I'm going to, right now, I've got crazy hair and I've got makeup from yesterday still on my face, and I'm not wearing pants. So I'll make sure I have pants on or something during the video. But you'll just be getting me as I am, my authentic self, and that's kind of unpolished, and it's not branded, if you catch my drift. So over at Patreon, any level of support will get you access to the video or the vlogging. The links to Patreon are going to be in show notes, and they're also all over my website. Just click on it, check it out. It's very self-explanatory and very easy. So I kind of hate to sign off because this is the last episode of my first season. It's super bittersweet. But this isn't goodbye. This is just simply until next time. So I guess until then, you keep that yarn moving.